Fiancée betrayed me for years, but my revenge helped me to take everything back. She thought I'd never find out. She thought I'd stay quiet. But behind her perfect lies, I was already preparing the truth. My name is Jeremy Collier. I'm 34. I design buildings for a living, the kind that don't fall apart when something shifts. But I couldn't design a life that held together. I gave 10 years of loyalty to two women. Both of them broke it. One in college with a lie behind a restaurant window, and one in marriage with my oldest friend. This story isn't about revenge. It's about clarity, about building something new from the ruins they left behind. I met Celeste Monroe during our sophomore year at the University of Colorado Boulder. She wore a red coat the first time I saw her. Not a shy burgundy, but blazing scarlet like a dare. I was majoring in architecture, buried in sketches and studio deadlines. She was in theater arts and somehow always surrounded by movement, people, energy. She chose me. I still remember the exact words she used the first night we kissed. "You look like you need someone to remind you life's not just floor plans." It worked, for a while. We became a unit, Jeremy and Celeste. She called me the steady one, and said it like a compliment, even when she was throwing parties in our apartment at 1 a.m. while I studied. I chalked it up to differences. I told myself opposites balance. But by senior year, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first. No lipstick on collars, no secret phone calls, just small misalignments in the rhythm. Celeste used to call me between rehearsals. Now she texted once at night. She started laughing at inside jokes I didn't recognize. Mentioned someone named Ryan a few times, a grad assistant in the theater department. When I asked, she waved it off. "Ryan? He's like 90, she said. "Relax." But I couldn't. The real unraveling began when she stopped saying we. Suddenly it was, "I'm doing this, I'm going there." Our plans got fuzzier. Her phone, always in her hand, became mysteriously face down. She turned away slightly when she typed. These things seem small until they stack. The last straw came on a Tuesday night in October. I just finished a late critique session and was walking home along Pearl Street when I passed a little bistro, the kind of place Celeste and I always said we'd try but never had. I noticed the flash of red in the window. A coat. Not hers, I thought. Couldn't be. But I stopped. It was her. She was sitting at a table near the window, laughing at something across from her. I had to shift to see who it was. Ryan, the 90-year-old. They weren't touching, not exactly, but she leaned in like gravity pulled her there. He reached out, moved a strand of hair from her face. She closed her eyes like it was rehearsed. I didn't walk in. I stood there, hands in my coat pockets, heart sinking slow like a stone through ice water. I watched them toast to something. Her glass full of white wine, his half drained. The waiter came, dropped off dessert. She stole a bite from his fork. There are worse betrayals, there are worse scenes. But nothing prepares you for that moment when the quiet suspicions harden into truth. When the maybe becomes the definitely. When the woman who once called you home looks more alive in someone else's laughter than she has in months with you. I walked away. I don't remember how I got home. Just that my sketch pad sat open on the desk and the apartment was cold. At midnight, she texted, "Sorry I'm late. Rehearsal went long. Can I come by?" I didn't respond. At 12:32, the door opened. She had a key, of course. I was at the kitchen counter sipping cold coffee. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her bag. "You look like hell." I didn't answer. She walked over, leaned in for a kiss. I moved back. "Something wrong?" she asked, her voice pitching up, the actress returning. I looked at her. "I saw you." She blinked. "Saw me?" "Pearl Street, bistro window, you and Ryan." Her silence told me everything. "Oh," she said finally. "That wasn't... Jeremy, it's not what it looked like." "It looked like you were happy," I said, "and I haven't seen that expression on your face in months. Not with me." She tried to laugh. "Jeremy, come on." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, You could have ended it, but you wanted both stories, and you thought I wouldn't turn the page. She went quiet. You don't have to explain, I said. Really, I've been preparing for this. Her face crumpled, but I couldn't tell if it was guilt or just inconvenience. I didn't mean for it to happen. You mean to get caught? She didn't answer. I nodded toward the door. Please go. She hesitated, but she knew. And that's when I knew something else, too. When love fades, it doesn't always leave a scar. Sometimes it just leaves clarity. And on the far edge of heartbreak, something steadier waits. But I wouldn't meet her. Not yet. First, I had to draw a clean line. She came back the next day, noon. No text this time, just knocking, quiet and repetitive. When I opened the door, she had a coffee in each hand. Peace offering, she said with a weak smile. I didn't move. I made a mistake, Jeremy, she started. I didn't plan it, and I didn't mean for it to matter. Celeste, I said. It does matter. Her expression tightened. I know I should have told you earlier, she continued. I thought I could fix it before you saw. That's the part you regret? That I saw? She looked down. I stepped aside, let her in. Not out of forgiveness, just to end it properly. She paced the living room, rambling. She said Ryan didn't mean anything. She said it started after we'd grown distant. She said she still loved me, but I wasn't angry anymore. I thought I'd scream, I told her. I rehearsed it. But now, I just want space and honesty, which is what you couldn't give me. Her eyes filled. So that's it? I nodded, and in that moment I didn't feel abandoned. I felt weightless. She left quietly. No slammed door, just silence, the kind that stays long after someone's gone. That night I went to the studio to work, and there, under warm light and pencil dust, I met someone new. Her name was Robin, and for the first time in weeks, someone looked me in the eyes like I wasn't broken. Robin Chen was in her final year of the same program I'd nearly dropped out of. She wasn't loud, wasn't trying to impress anyone, just a calm, quiet presence in the corner of the studio, who listened more than she spoke. We were paired on a restoration project. She handled lighting analysis. I handled the structure. On the second day, she brought in muffins and a playlist of Miles Davis. You look like someone who hasn't heard silence in a while, she said. I hadn't. She never asked about Celeste. I appreciated that. We worked, we talked about buildings, about travel, about how people design places they wish they could live in, even if they never feel at home inside them. I told her once, some people build to remember. I build to forget. She didn't flinch, just nodded and replied, then let's build something solid. I didn't fall in love that week, or that month. But I started sleeping better, started eating again, started sketching not for class, but for myself. Meanwhile, my old friend Miles Reeve returned to town. We'd gone to high school together. He was the kind of guy who always made noise when he entered a room, and somehow people liked it. Last I heard, he was clerking for a law firm in Denver. Now apparently he was back, and dating someone named Laurel. I didn't think much of it, not yet. 7 years passed. I married Laurel Brentwood 2 weeks after my 30th birthday. She was vibrant, sharp, with a voice that could command a room without raising it. My friends called us a power couple. My parents adored her. For a while, I did too. We bought a house near City Park in Denver. I opened my own boutique architecture firm. She ran a brand strategy agency. We shared Spotify playlists, weekend getaways, and friends, including Miles, who Laurel called a golden retriever in lawyer form. I didn't laugh at that joke the second time. The photos came anonymously, a plain manila envelope on the steps of my office one Monday morning. Inside, 6 high-resolution prints. Laurel, Miles, a hotel parking garage, a kiss that wasn't brief. No note, just the timestamp. I didn't confront her that night. I poured whiskey, lit a fire, and laid the prints out like floor plans. By the third glass, I realized something cold and steady. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. This time, I'd build my exit. Laurel walked in at 8:11 p.m., holding Thai takeout and humming something off-key. I looked up, smiled, and filed every image in a folder labeled Structural Weakness. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity, I wanted control, and I wanted Laurel and Miles to feel something they'd both taken from me: instability. I started by redrawing the blueprint of my life. Step 1. Financial firewall. Years earlier, when I launched Collier's studio, I'd done what Laurel always mocked: opened it under a holding company registered in my sister's name. She called it paranoid. Turns out it was prophetic. Every dollar from my business was legally separate from our joint accounts. And for months now, I'd been routing more and more into it. Expansion, I told her. We might take on that Chicago project. She smiled, clueless. Meanwhile, I was quietly meeting with my lawyer, Nora Jensen, every Thursday. Nora knew everything. She'd represented me during a zoning dispute years back and once said, "You're too polite to survive a fight." I took that personally. I also took notes. We drafted a plan: dissolve the joint account, sell the second property, freeze all major asset access without notice, initiate the divorce filing the same morning Laurel was supposed to be at a conference in Santa Fe with Miles. Step 2. Friendly deception. To keep her distracted, I played the role. Brought home wine. Booked us a spa day she canceled last minute. Told her, "I've been thinking about that second honeymoon." She looked guilty once. I looked away. Let her think she was winning. Meanwhile, I reached out to Robin. Not to rekindle anything, just to borrow her boyfriend. He worked at a hotel downtown. I needed access to the suite Laurel and Miles used regularly. Robin said yes in one sentence. About time someone leveled the field. Step 3. The setup. I sent Laurel flowers. "Can't wait to celebrate you this weekend. You deserve it." She texted a heart emoji. I took a screenshot. At the hotel, we installed a discreet, motion-triggered camera in the living area. Nothing explicit, just enough to confirm their movements, their laughter, their bodies too close. I watched the footage alone. Never told Nora, never told Robin. That was for me. Step 4. The unveiling. Laurel came home Sunday night, smiling. I asked about the conference. "Exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels. "You know how those networking things are." I handed her a folder across the kitchen island. "What's this?" she asked. "Weekend highlights." She opened it, saw the stills, the timestamp. She didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Then, "Jeremy, I didn't want it to be like this." "But it is." She moved closer. "Can we talk?" "No," I said, "because this wasn't a conversation when you chose him." Step 5. The public scene. A week later, I invited Miles to meet me at a cafe under the guise of a legal referral. He showed. Of course he did. "You look good," he said, too cheerily. "Laurel says you've been quiet lately." I handed him a manila envelope. Same stills, plus one extra. A printout of a restraining order application with his name already typed in. "I want you out of both our lives," I said. He laughed, until I slid over a second sheet, a letter to the state bar citing misconduct, including affairs with married clients and conflict of interest. "You wouldn't," he said, pale now. "I already did." Copies went out this morning. He stood, chest puffed. "You think this makes you noble?" "No," I said. "It just makes me finished." Step 6. The final cut. Divorce was filed. Laurel was served at her office. She called that night 5 times. I answered once. "You didn't have to do it like this," she cried. "I really did," I said. She asked if we could talk in person. I said, "Only with Nora present." "Miles?" He moved to Aspen for clarity. Laurel moved in with her sister. She tried to freeze the divorce. Nora unfroze it. I stayed calm, stayed quiet. And every time someone asked, "What happened to you two?" I smiled and said, "We had irreconcilable differences." What I didn't say was this: I just finally architected the exit I should have built years ago. The court didn't ask why. They never do. When you file with evidence, timestamps, and a lawyer who knows exactly which judges respect quiet precision, you don't have to raise your voice. Laurel tried to drag it out, claimed emotional distress, said the photos were taken without consent. My attorney responded with 4 words. All documentation is admissible. The judge agreed. She asked to return to the house. I said no. Nora had already had the locks changed and the security codes reset. Laurel's name was removed from all utilities. She cried in front of the mediator. I didn't blink. People told me I was being cold. That divorce didn't have to be war. But they didn't live with betrayal layered over betrayal. They didn't open envelopes full of proof. Miles went dark. I heard rumors he was being reviewed by the Bar Association. Good. Let him sweat. I didn't need revenge anymore. I needed peace. And peace for me looked like silence, empty rooms, fresh blueprints. One morning, Laurel tried to drop off a letter just to explain. She stood outside the front gate for 11 minutes. I watched from the upstairs window. Then I went back to my drafting table. The lines I drew now, they were just for me. After the divorce, I left Denver for a while. I took a freelance contract restoring historical facades in Lisbon. The old tile work, the stone, the weathered charm of age, it all felt honest. Broken, but beautiful, unlike anything Laurel and I had built. That's where I met Elena Duarte. She was a restoration specialist from Madrid. No nonsense. Wore boots covered in plaster and carried a notebook filled with sketches and quotes. The first thing she said to me wasn't hello, it was, "Do you think this building wants to be saved?" I laughed. Depends who's asking. We worked together for 3 months before I even asked her to dinner. She said yes, but warned me. I've got cracks too, Jeremy. Don't expect smooth walls. I didn't. We didn't talk about our pasts much. Not at first. We talked about light, about silence, about the difference between a house and a home. And somewhere between scaffolding and sidewalk cafes, something like trust began to grow again. One night she showed me a map she'd drawn of Lisbon, not for tourists but for people like us. Quiet places, corners of the city no one photographs. She said, "Everyone deserves a place to stand where no one questions why they're there." I told her I was tired of rebuilding. She said, "Then maybe it's time to design something new." I signed the divorce papers in silence. No fireworks, no final screams, just a signature, notarized and scanned into an email that felt colder than the Denver snow outside. Laurel didn't contest anything after the second hearing. She knew better. Miles had already accepted a private reprimand from the Bar Association. He lost his job at the Denver firm and retreated quietly to a consulting gig out west. Last I heard, they weren't together anymore. Of course they weren't. People who bond over deception don't last. They're not partners, they're co-conspirators. And eventually, the thrill of the secret turns into the burden of keeping it. Meanwhile, I was gone. I stayed in Lisbon another 3 months before accepting a private commission in Barcelona. Restoration work, a 17th century church that had been turned into an art center. It was difficult, detailed, exhausting, and exactly what I needed. Elena visited once a week. She never asked me to explain things I wasn't ready to say. She brought me lunch, reviewed my plans, and one night brought wine and said, "You're allowed to stop carrying her voice in your head." That stuck with me. I hadn't realized how much of Laurel's tone had lingered, how many moments I second-guessed myself because I was used to being questioned, doubted. With Elena, I didn't feel small. She saw me as I was, not as I had been, not as I'd failed. We moved back to Colorado in the spring, not to Denver, too loud, too many ghosts. Instead, we settled in Manitou Springs, a town tucked into the edge of the Rockies. Quiet, artistic, a place where people knew their neighbors but didn't ask too many questions. Elena got a position with a cultural preservation trust. I launched a new firm, this time focusing solely on adaptive reuse, turning old spaces into new ones. It felt symbolic, honest. We lived in a converted railway cottage with creaky stairs and a lemon tree in the backyard. On Sundays, we drank coffee on the porch and made lists of things we'd never do to each other. Never lie to protect the other from pain. Never raise our voices just to win. Never weaponize silence. Always let the other speak, even if it hurts. Some people write vows, and we drafted a blueprint. 6 months later, I received a letter. It was from Laurel, typed, formal. She said she was seeking closure and hoping to clarify the timeline of our emotional breakdown. She wanted to know what I'd told people and whether I'd be open to a conversation as adults. I laughed once, folded it in half, and set it in the fire. Elena watched. She didn't ask, just slid her hand into mine and said, "You can talk about it, or you can let it burn. Both are valid." I chose silence. Not because I was afraid, but because there was nothing Laurel could say that would bring anything new. Nothing I needed. No story I hadn't already told myself and let die. Later that month, Elena and I drove to a town nearby to look at a building, a decommissioned schoolhouse with chipped brick and sun-warmed windows. She loved it instantly. "You see a project?" I asked. "I see home." Then she looked at me and added, "If you're ready." I was. We bought it together. No contracts, no prenup debates, no hidden accounts. Just trust, the kind you build from scratch like stone on stone, slowly, honestly. One night after we finished painting the main room, Elena sat cross-legged on the floor and said, "You ever think about what it cost you? Everything with her?" I thought about it and said, "It cost me clarity and made me value designing my own peace." She smiled and then said, "I'm not here to fix you." "I know," I said, "but you remind me I don't need fixing." The next morning, I opened my laptop to a fresh floor plan template. Not for a client, not for work, just a sketch for a sunroom, where she could paint, where I could draft. A quiet room, facing east. So the light would hit our coffee cups before anything else. I labeled it Future. Some people live in revenge. I live in what came after, and finally it's a structure I trust,